Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Bon matin, mesdames et messieurs, et bienvenue à la Conseil municipal pour la Ville d'Ottawa pour le 21 septembre 20.
This is a meeting on September 21st, 2022.
Meeting for September 21st, 2022. The official period of mourning for Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II ended on Monday as Her Majesty was laid to rest in a final farewell. As per protocol, the Queen's portrait, which is normally by Councillor Dudas, has been removed from council chambers, and we await news on the official portrait of King Charles III. J'aimerais profiter de cette occasion pour honorer la mémoire de feu notre reine.
I'd like to honor the memory of our past queen.
The day of Her Majesty's state funeral in the United Kingdom was marked in Canada with a national day of mourning and a national commemorative ceremony at Christ Church Cathedral here in Ottawa. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth was steadfast in her decades of service to the Commonwealth and to Canada. She held a special place in the hearts of many in the city of Ottawa and across our great country, in fact, visiting Ottawa on 13 occasions. Sa Majesté la Reine Elizabeth II a fidèlement...
Queen Elizabeth II was steadfast in her decade of service to the Commonwealth and to Canada. She held a special place in the hearts of many of the city of Ottawa and across our great country.
Canadians had a special place in her heart. We celebrate her life with heavy hearts and a deep appreciation for her service as our Queen. Today, I wish to honor Her Majesty, her lifetime of public service, and her contributions to people across the globe. Rest in peace, Your Majesty, and long live the King. Please stand for a moment of personal reflection. Thank you. Merci. I'm honored to acknowledge that September 30th is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. This will be the second year that we officially commemorate survivors and victims of residential schools. Nous devons profiter de cette occasion pour nous rappeler...
We must take advantage of this opportunity to recall the horrible past of residential schools and their impact on the
awareness
Aboriginals.
of the painful legacy and impacts of the residential school system, particularly in light of the discoveries of unmarked graves at former residential school locations over the last several years. Reconciliation is the process of healing relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Canadians. This requires public truth sharing, apology, and commemoration that acknowledges and redresses past and present harms. On September 30th, I'll make an official proclamation to mark the day, and flags at City Hall and other locations will be blown at half-mast. Many recognition events will be hosted in Ottawa, offering an important opportunity to broaden our understanding of truth and reconciliation. The organizers of these events work tirelessly to support Indigenous children, families, and residential school survivors, and I want to acknowledge the immense value of this work, for which I'm very grateful. Je remercie tous ceux et celles qui travaillent.
I would like to thank all those who work constantly to support survivals.
Canada may be attending survivors gatherings and other events here in the nation's capital, and I know that we will come together as a city to ensure they feel welcome and supported. C'est le moment de faire avancer nos efforts de réconciliation pour construire.
We must promote our efforts of reconciliation to build a better future for all members of our community.
Shared responsibility for all Canadians. It requires effort and action, not just on day, but every day of the year. I hope you will join me in good numbers on September 30th as we recognize this dark colonial past and continue working together towards reconciliation in Canada. Merci beaucoup. I'm pleased to welcome family members and friends of our honored guests who have joined us on this special occasion as we present the Mayor's City Builder Award. I'm honored to welcome Ken Craig for the first presentation. Regrettably, your counselor is not able to be with us today. So Ken, if you would come forward, please. Welcome, bienvenue. And you've got a great turnout of family and friends and neighbors. That's terrific. The Mayor's City Builder Award recognizes people who have demonstrated an extraordinary commitment to making our city a better place through volunteerism and exemplary action. Ce prix vise à récompenser les personnes qui font preuve d'un engagement profond à faire de notre ville.
This prize is for people that demonstrated extraordinary commitment to making the city a better place through volunteerism.
An events promoter and producer for decades and is recognized for his expertise in the live event business. He started his own company in 1997 and partnered with some of the world's largest promotional companies. As an independent promoter, Ken organized and produced special concerts and events like 1998's Powerade live concert to raise money for people affected by the ice storm, and the After the Storm Tornado Relief Benefit Concert in 2018. Ken has volunteered regularly in the Ottawa area to stage charity and fundraising concerts and events and has never turned down a request to assist organizations that help raise funds for a very worthy cause. He helped raise millions of dollars to assist Ottawa residents and support causes including the Ottawa Food Bank, the Ottawa Mission, the CHEO Foundation, and Hope Volleyball. Ken also serves on countless volunteer committees, including the organizing committees for 3 Grey Cups, the Juno Awards, and various development and design committees. He provided his expertise to Wesley Clover Parks, the Rideau Carlton Casino, TD Place Building Committee, and many others to ensure design elements meet the needs of event producers and promoters. The list of organizations and events that Ken has helped over the years is extensive, and I want to highlight just a few of his many contributions to our community. For 16 years, he served on the volunteer parent councils and committees of both St. Leonard and St. Mark Catholic Schools in Manotick, and he has fundraised, supported, and made significant donations to both of these schools. For 20 years, he volunteered with CHEO and assisted organizers wherever necessary. He's been involved in the promotion and staging of more than 1,000 events in Ottawa and around the world during his 40 years in the live entertainment business. Here in Ottawa, they include a long list of most memorable concerts, including the Rolling Stones at Lansdowne. I was there. It was quite the show. Pink Floyd, the New Kids on the Block, just to name a few. Ken has never turned down a request to help the Canadian military, and since in 2006, he has donated more than $300,000 in concerts and show tickets to members of the Canadian Armed Forces and their families. For his exceptional volunteerism and countless contributions to our community, it's my pleasure to present Ken Craig with the Mayor's City Builder Award. Thank you for the great work you do in the community, Ken. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mayor Watson. And we've been, as you know, we've been friends for a long time. And I do have to say that I take my passion from you. You're so passionate for the city of Ottawa, and I love that too, as everybody in this room. And I thank everybody very much, and especially the city of Ottawa, because everybody knows, I mean, doing large events like Grey Cup, Junos, Rolling Stones, and all these big events at Canadian Tire Center, TD Place, takes a team of people. And just like the team of the city, I thank you very much. The seat committee, of course, with the city of Ottawa is second to none. They help so much with events. Their experience and knowledge is definitely over the top. And of course, I do have to thank the bylaw for showing up at some of my stadium shows. And I have paid all those fines, Mr. Mayor Watson, just so you know. And sometimes it's kind of tough to get Axl Rose and AC/DC to turn the music down, but I've always did my best, so the city council knows. And but again, it's a great city. I thank Jonathan Harris very, very much for the nomination for this award. I appreciate it. And of course, this city is so wonderful. I've been very lucky. And I will tell you, I don't find my job hard because I've been very lucky in this city, that we've got a place like Canadian Tire Centre and the National Arts Centre and TD Place to work with, and all the people at the Ottawa Senators and Tom Conroy, Tim Swords, who have helped so much, Roger Greenberg and Mark Gowdy down at TD Place. It's a wonderful city to do events in. The support is over the top, and I thank everybody. And of course, my St. Leonard's and St. Mark's that I volunteered at Parent Council for 16 years, never missed a meeting. And because, I have that passion for the schools that I went to and my kids went to, and, and helping out, of course, with CHIO and the food missions, it was very easy. But again, I just put out the press release when it comes to like the food mission and that. It's the people who buy the tickets and bring the can of food and everything to the events are the people that deserve the applause. But I thank everybody very much. And Mayor Watson, thank you very much for this award.
Well, thank you very, very much, Craig and family members. I now have the pleasure of presenting the Mayor City Builder Award to Danilo Vulescu, and I'm pleased to welcome Alta Vista Councillor Jean Cloutier to join us for the presentation. And if you would join us as well, please, Danilo, welcome. Welcome, Councillor Cloutier. Danilo's volunteer efforts span more than 20 years and is recognized for the significant contributions as a community builder and journalist. He has worked as a photojournalist for various community newspapers and magazines, covering events hosted by Latin America and other ethnic communities. Danilo, a social media program focused on connecting communities with individuals who are making a difference in Canada. He also used this forum to support new local businesses with interviews and free advertising. Danilo has made many charitable contributions to the community, including donating photographs to CHIO, the Ottawa Hospital, and numerous other charities. He donated photographs to be auctioned for charity events and provided free photographic services for weddings and other events for low-income families. Danilo supported and covered countless community events across the region and also supported the LGBTQ+ community with his coverage and photographs of the Pride Parade. He also volunteered his time with various organizations such as the Ride for Dad and Blood Canada, and covered countless community and cultural events in the region, lending his photography and videography skills. Danilo continues to support diversity and inclusion and has united communities through his contributions. Even while on vacation, he donated sports equipment in Nicaragua. In recognition of his exceptional volunteerism and contributions to community, it's my pleasure to present the Mayor City Award to you, Danilo. Thank you, and keep up the great work. Felicitations. Come on up here.
Thank you. First, I would like to say thank you to Mayor Watson and the councilors for this amazing recognition. I want to say thank you to my friends that came today and make the time to come today. I want to say a special thank you to my Algonquin sister, Glenda Steven, that traveled over 100 kilometers to join us today. Thank you so much, Miwech. I would like also to take the opportunity to say thank you to Mr. Watson for the wonderful job that you have done as a mayor all these years. I wish you nothing but success in your next journey and blessings for you and your loving ones. Thank you to my wife for her tolerance and patience to assist me in continuing doing this. And I would like to say lastly, but not least, that I would like to dedicate this award to all my Algonquin brothers and sisters from Kitigan CV, because their resilience, their resistance, their teaching, their spirit is my strength and my motivation and inspiration to continue serving the community, for the community and the community, with the community, which include the indigenous community, and to make the unsurrendered and unceded Algonquin territory a better place to live. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Miigwech, miigwech, miigwech.
Thank you again to all of our guests who've come to see their friends and family members honored by the city. Merci beaucoup pour votre présence. Roll call, please, Madam Deputy Clerk.
Councillor Lula,
Je suis présent.
Councillor Dudas,
I'm here.
Councillor Harder, Councillor Curry,
Yeah, here.
Councillor El Shantiri,
Present.
Councillor Gower,
Here.
Councillor Kavanaugh,
Here.
Councillor Shirelli, Councillor Eglai,
Here.
Councillor Deans,
Here.
Councillor Tierney,
Présent.
C'est Fleury,
Bonjour.
Councillor King,
Here.
Councillor McKenney,
Here.
Councillor Leeper,
Good morning.
Councillor Brockington,
Here.
Councillor Menard,
Here.
Jose Clucci,
Présent.
Councillor Kitts, Councillor DeRuse,
I'm here.
Councillor Moffat, Councillor Meehan,
I'm here.
Councillor Hubley, Mayor Watson.
PC.
You have a quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Confirmation of minutes of the council meeting of the 31st of August 2022. Procès verbal de la réunion ordinaire du conseil municipal de 31 août 2022. Adopté, carried.
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 Declaration of interest, including those originally rising from prior meetings. Déclaration d'intérêt. Any declarations of conflict of interest? No. Regrets, Councillor Scott Moffat advised he'd be absent from the City Council meeting of the 21st September 2022. Motion to introduce reports. Motion portant présentation de rapport. Councillor Curry, please, seconded by Councillor Eglai.
That the deferred report from Planning Committee entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment 100 Stacy Drive, the Ottawa Community Lands Development Corporation report entitled Ottawa Community Lands Development Corporation 2021 Annual Report, Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee Report 33, Audit Committee Report 16, Planning Committee Report 67, and the report from the City Clerk entitled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for Items Subject to the Planning Act, Explanation Requirements at the City Council meeting of August 31st, 2022, be received and considered.
On the motion, carried. Adopté. Next is Ottawa Land Development Corporation. We have a technical amendment to bring it to the next meeting. Councillor King, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Whereas the report from the Ottawa Community Lands Development Corporation entitled Ottawa Community Lands Development Corporation 2021 Annual Report was missing from the annual report to be attached to document 1. Therefore, be it resolved that the Ottawa Community Lands Development Corporation report entitled Ottawa Community Lands Development Corporation 2021 Annual Report be deferred to the council meeting of the 5th of October.
On the motion, carried.
Carried.
Adopté. Postponements and deferrals, item 10, rapport et renvoi, zoning bylaw amendment 100 Stacy Drive, deferred from council meeting of August 31st, 2022. Councillor Curry has a motion, seconded by Councillor Dudas.
So I should introduce, yeah? Colleagues, this is an important motion for me in Canada North, and I believe that it's important to you as well. I'm aware that you are all, and you are aware that council decided in 2019 to allow churches to be located in industrial and business setting, but people driving in and out of church services don't end up living in the business park setting for 24/7. Today, I'm asking you to sustain the Planning Committee recommendation by voting yes to my motion. Fundamentally, I believe that locating these two residential buildings in this industrial commercial setting is not a good long-term decision for future residents and families. Residents of this proposed development have little to no hope of seeing sidewalks built on Stacy for the foreseeable future. This will never be the kind of residential neighborhood we as a council aspire to. As my motion lists, the proposal actually is incompatible with existing development in the area, is in proximity to and incompatible with the industrial development in the area, has poor access to transit and is more than 600-meter walking distance of a transit stop or station. has poor access to community amenities, creates negative impact for pedestrians such as isolation, lack of sidewalks, and is close proximity to commercial and industrial land uses. And it is via the intersection of Stacy Drive and Tarrant Road, which is a failing intersection. I think there are many arguments the community made and I have made at Planning Committee, and I was very pleased to see the Planning Committee agreed that this development should not go forward. So I would ask that you support my motion here today by voting yes. Thank you.
Okay. On Councillor Menard, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks very much, Mayor. I just wanted to hear from staff and their recommendation on the report.
The staff recommendation, Mr. Mayor, was to recommend approval of the report.
Okay, and on this particular motion, then staff recommendation would be to what? Send this back to Planning Committee and not approve the motion?
I think Mr. Mark can address the legal requirement related to the motion.
Mr. Mayor, where council is going to refuse a planning item, the Planning Act requires that reasons for refusal be given. So if council is going to carry the refusal, then a motion such as this providing reasons must be carried.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Deans?
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Councillor.
Is it your intention that we discuss this issue now or hold it and return to it?
Now, because it's a postponement.
Okay, so I guess my question is, I would like to understand from the planning department why you recommended approval of this item. That's my first question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In staff's review of the application, it did comply with the city's official plan and provincial policy statement. It was consistent with those two items. If you require further detail, I would ask Mr. Moody to address specifics.
So, Derek, maybe you could just address the specifics of this. I mean, I tend to agree with Councillor Curry that putting residential uses in an industrial park doesn't on the face of it seem like a good idea, but I would like to understand the planning rationale.
So first and foremost, Mr. Mayor, the lands in question are designated as general urban within the official plan. The Canada North Business Park designation is, the edge of it is across the rail corridor from this site. So the policy context that we looked at this site was very much in the framework of a general urban designated lands. The standard review was undertaken with respect to transportation and traffic related concerns that were deemed to be satisfactory. And, in short, the general urban designation allows a wide variety of uses, including residential. And in our review, it was determined that the site was the proposal for this site was appropriate and in compliance with the official plan.
Okay, thank you for that. And Mr. Mark, to you then, presuming that council accepts the motion from Councillor Curry, I would presume since the city staff had recommended concurrence that we would have to get some outside legal help to represent us at an LPAT appeal. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, legal services, of course, takes instructions from council. And so I would anticipate that if this motion is carried, internal legal services would continue to represent the city's position. We would have to go outside for an external planner and an external transportation consultant, given the wording of this motion.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Deans. Councillor Shantiri, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question to what Mr. Moody has said about this property and the zoning. I understand it might confirm with what existing policy we have today, but reality is anyone who visit the site or who know the area will know you're putting a high-rise or residential next to a major industrial operation. And I don't understand how could even the old official plan designate this as an urban development area. So if staff feel because of the policy we have to approve something, maybe we need to visit that policy itself, because I don't understand someone who basically go by that section every second day to have all these trucks operating with the next residential to them. So again, I'm not sure, maybe the policy itself, we need to ask you to take a look at this. I will be supporting Councilor Kerr's motion. I did on plan and I would hear it too, but I find it is ironically, we would see something like this in the middle of heavy industrial park. Thank you.
Okay, so on Councillor Curry's motion, Carrie, on the report as amended.
I think let's do yays and nays on the motion there.
Well, we just passed the motion. Do you want it on the main motion?
Yeah, on the main motion. Yeah, I definitely want to dissent and be nice to.
Yays and nays have been called on the main report as amended.
Councillor El Shantiri,
Yes.
Councillor Leeper,
Yes.
Councillor Dudas,
Yes.
Councillor Gower,
No.
Conseil Cloutier,
Oui.
Councillor Deans,
No.
Councillor Tierney,
Yes.
Councillor Kitts,
Yes.
Councillor Shirelli, Councillor Meehan,
Yes.
Councillor Harder, Councillor McKenney,
Yes.
Councillor King,
Yes.
Councillor Curry,
Yes.
Councillor Lulov,
Yes.
Councillor Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Councillor Eglai,
Very quick question. We're voting on staff's recommendation at this point, or as amended by Councillor Curry's motion?
It's the planning committee report, Councillor.
Whether we support that or not?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Councillor Menard,
Sorry, I thought we were voting on Councillor Curry's motion, and that's what I was hoping to vote on.
I think we're confused here, yeah.
No, the deputy clerk, please.
Mr. Mayor, my understanding is that council is voting on the planning committee recommendation to refuse as amended by Councillor Curry's motion to provide reasons for refusal. And so a vote of yes is to refuse the application.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll vote no. Thank you.
Conseil Fleury,
Oui.
Councillor Derouse,
Yes.
Councillor Moffat, Councillor Hubley, Councillor Brockington,
No.
Mayor Watson,
Yes.
17 yeas, 4 nays.
Okay, next is Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee Report number 33, rapport number 33 du Comité de l'Agriculture, Development Charge Complaint 3420 Baskins Beach Road.
Hold, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, who asked for that?
Councillor Deans.
Is it a quick item, Councillor, or should we come back?
I mean, I can ask the question. I don't know if it's a quick item or not.
Go ahead.
Well, I've read this report and it seems that this changed about 20 years ago, I guess around amalgamation, and the applicant here missed the deadline, so is required to pay this development charge. And the only thing I could see in the report was that apparently when they went to inquire about the development charge, a clerk perhaps gave them some erroneous information. It's not really documented who that was or when that was, but it's almost like it's over $18,000, and the city staff have recommended that they pay it. And I wonder, one, if staff can just take us through why they believe this should be payable to the municipality, and two, what precedent this would be setting if we waive this development fee.
Mr. Mayor, the rationale, which was in fact delivered to the applicant prior to her filing the development charge complaint, is that if a exemption was to be claimed, there was an amendment made to the Development Charges Act in 1998 or 1999 that required that it be done at that time. It wasn't done, and therefore was staff's view that the credit does not apply. Now, in 2021, the applicant was told that she would be entitled to an exemption. That was clarified before she obtained the building permit, but she was told in 2021 she was still entitled to the exemption. So those are the essential facts of the case, but the staff view was that given the language of the Development Charges Act and the 1998, 1999 amendments, that the credit was not available.
And Mr. Mark, this was an error on a city staff person's part to tell the applicant that?
It was incorrect information, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and so that was not when she came in for the permit, though. That was prior to that, sometime prior?
My recollection is about 6 months prior, Mr. Mayor.
And Mr. Mark, can you just talk about the precedent? If we were to waive this, anyone else who missed that deadline back in 1998 or 1999 presumably could make the same argument then, since we're waiving this one?
They certainly, Mr. Mayor, they certainly could advance it. Now, I don't know how many exemption certificates would still be around from 1999. There may be some. I don't know the extent to which they're still around.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, on report number 33, carried. Item 12, Audit Committee Report number 16, rapport numéro 16 du Comité de la Vérification. Item 12.1, carried. Thank you to our Auditor General. Appreciate that. Good advice. Yeah. Also at ARAC is the removal of the VAR's water infrastructure fee. Carried?
Can I offer a brief comment, or would you like to come back?
Go ahead, Councillor Kitts.
So just by way of explanation, I'm not sure how many colleagues tuned into our last ARAC meeting. So in October of last year, I received a series of emails inquiring about this charge, and it's a fee. It was a fee that was collected on new homes connecting to the water system, and it had been established by the former regional municipality to pay back the capital costs related to the system, but the regulation required that the fee would go up annually based on compound interest. So in October 2021, the charge was $27,000 on a modest home. So I reached out to staff to find out how much money had been collected and how much longer we would be collecting this fee. And through their review, finance staff determined that the $2.9 million had been collected and that there was no more debt remaining, so that the charge is being recommended to be halted immediately. So this was not a straightforward one. I've been working on it for a while, but very pleased that it's coming forward today. Thank you.
Great. It's always good to get that history, that historical perspective. So thank you for that. On the report is presented. Carried.
Carried.
Planning Committee Report number 67, rapport numéro 67 du Comité de l'Urbanisme, appeal with respect to official plan amendment of 1186, 1188, 1194 Wellington Street West. So we'll come back to that because it has a motion from Councillor Leeper. Next item is 13.2, zoning bylaw amendment 1649 Montreal Road and 741 Blair Road. Modification de règlement de zonage 1649 Chemin de Montréal et 741 Chemin Blair. And Councillor Tierney's ward, carried. Adopté.
Carried.
Zoning bylaw amendment 2254, 2262, 2270 Brayside Avenue and 2345 Alta Vista Drive. Modification de règlement de zonage 2254, 2262, 2270 Avenue Brayside et 2345 Promenade Alta Vista. Carried. Adopté. Next is the Orleans Corridor Secondary Plan. We have a direction and a motion, so we'll come back to that. Does anyone wish to remove anything from the bulk consent agenda at this point? Nothing on the bulk consent agenda as presented.
Carried.
Carried. Adopté. Okay, we'll head back to our first held item. That is number 13, Planning Committee Report number 67, appeal with respect to official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment 1186, 1188, and 1194 Wellington Street West. Appel concurrent de la modification de plan officiel de la modification de règlement de zonage. Councillor Leeper, you have a motion, seconded by Councillor Gower, please.
I do. Thank you, Mayor. I think many colleagues will be familiar. This is a proposal for the corner of Parkdale and Wellington by Minto. When it was first brought to Planning Committee deferred the item and asked the developer to come back with something that was more suitable for the corner than a 16-story tower. The developer chose not to come back with a modified proposal, but went to the Ontario Land Tribunal on the basis of a non-decision. The Planning Committee at our last meeting unanimously chose to instruct our staff to oppose the development at the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the effect of, or not unanimously, I'm sorry, Riley, there was a dissent. The effect of that is the main motion on which we're voting today is to confirm the Planning Committee instructions. In the meantime, between Planning Committee and now, City staff have drafted up the reasons for refusal, and they are comprehensive, and so that is a separate motion on which we'll be voting, is to accept the reasons. I want to thank legal staff, particularly Garrett, for the work that he's done on developing a very comprehensive list of reasons why this development does not meet with council's intent with respect to the various different plans and policies that we have. And therefore, with Councillor Gower's seconding, thank you for that. Whereas at its September 9, 2022 planning meeting, Planning Committee recommended that council instruct legal services staff to oppose an appeal with respect to an official plan and zoning bylaw application at 1186, 1188, and 1194 Wellington Street West before the Ontario Land Tribunal, and further recommended that legal services staff work with the ward councillor to produce written reasons for that recommendation. Therefore, be it resolved that council adopt the following reasons for the decision to oppose the appeal. 1, the proposed development is not consistent with the provincial policy statement sections 167, 171, and 18, as it fails to maintain or enhance the vitality of the main street or to minimize vehicle trips and promote active transportation and transit. 2, the proposed development does not conform with the policies in Volume 1, Sections 251, 361, 363, and 411 of the current official plan, namely the scale, massing, height do not relate well to neighboring properties, appropriate compatibility and transition are not provided between low and high-rise development. The proposed development fails to respect the medium density vision of areas designated traditional Main Street, and the number of vehicle parking spaces proposed, considering the location along 2 transit priority corridors, would reduce transit demand and result in unacceptable traffic impacts, which are not adequately mitigated by the proposal. The proposed development does not conform with the policies of the current Wellington Street West secondary plan set out in Section 11.3 or with Sections 2.1 or 2.3 in the proposed new Wellington Street West secondary plan. The proposed height exceeds the maximum of 6 stories or 20 meters permitted as of right, as well as the maximum of 9 stories permitted if Section 37 benefits are provided. The proposed development fails to ensure compatibility with the existing low-rise human scale buildings and is not consistent with the built form vision for these areas. And C, the proposed development fails to provide desirable land uses and distinguishing character consistent with the vision for the Parkdale Park area. 4, the proposed development does not conform with the policies of the new official plan, currently pending Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing approval, set out in Volume 1, Sections 414, 465, 466, 52, and 62. Namely, the proposed development fails to provide sensitive integration of new development and fails to conform with applicable council-approved guidelines for transition in height, massing, and development character. B, the proposed height exceeds the maximum of 9 stories permitted along Main Street corridors. And C, the proposed development fails to design growth so as to increase sustainable transportation mode shares and results in unacceptable transportation impacts which are not mitigated by the proposal. 5, taken as a whole, the proposed development does not constitute good planning. Thank you, Chair. Mayor.
Right, Councillor Brockington has a question.
Thank you, Mayor, and good morning to you and colleagues. So staff, Councillor Leeper has put forward a comprehensive rationale as to why this proposal should be refused. Can staff please articulate why they are recommending that council at this time approve the development application?
Mr. Mayor, the staff report right now is seeking instructions for legal counsel on how to respond to the appeal that has been filed. The report put forward recommended approval of the application based on the original staff report that went to Planning Committee. My colleague from Planning is on the line to comment if we would like specific comments on the original staff position. But I can summarize that the original staff position was that it was the proposal was consistent with the official plan sufficiently to approve it.
So just for procedure this morning, if council rejects the recommendation that's before us, which is council instruct legal service to oppose the approval of the zoning, would a new motion need to come on the floor to then approve this development? I'm just trying to get things in order here. Is that in essence what would happen?
Mr. Mayor, Planning Committee amended the report to replace the recommendation of the staff report with a recommendation to refuse to instruct legal services to oppose the appeal. So a further motion would be required to restore the staff recommendation that was originally in the report before Planning Committee.
Is this location within the radius of a rapid transit station where density and development it has been encouraged?
My recollection, and I'll have to ask planning staff to comment on this, was that it was partially but not fully within the radius of a 100-meter radius. But I'll ask planning staff, Mr. Notter, to comment if he can.
Go ahead, Notter. So just through the mayor, the site itself is actually within 800 meters of the Chinese pasture LRT station.
So this is 15-minute neighborhood, multiple amenities nearby. Councillor Leeper argues that this exceeds what a traditional main street would normally permit. So again, how does staff reconcile the long list of reasons why this should be opposed versus why staff believe this is an appropriate place for this building, which exceeds what is currently permitted?
Mr. Mayor, I can, the reasons in the motion were prepared with staff assistance to reflect Councillor Leeper's motion in Planning Committee. So those were, I would refer to my colleagues in planning to explain their recommendation in their report, which was supportive of the application.
Right. To be helpful, Mr. Mayor, perhaps Mr. McCrate could walk council through that that reasoning.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It's Andrew McCrate, Manager of Development Review Central. The file lead was Steve Gauthier on this application. High level, the reasons for our recommendation of approval for the 16-story tower is much of it represented a density redistribution. This is a large site on a traditional main street with as of right built form of 6 stories up to 9 stories on the corner. The 16-story proposal that was recommended for approval by staff represented a density increase of 13%, and staff felt that the reallocation of that density opened up the public realm of the site, provided better transition to the surrounding neighborhoods. Although it is a tower on what would otherwise be a mid-rise site, vast majority of the building was within a 45-degree angular plane. Just the top 3 stories were above that angular plane analysis, and the tower itself has a small floor plate at 750 square meters. Directly south of the site is an existing 13-story apartment, and the northern facade of that building is a blank wall. So there's a good relationship with the surrounding context. It is at the junction of two transit priority corridors in a neighborhood with vast majority of access to services and amenities, and it is within 800 meters walking distance of the Tunney's LRT station. So we felt through good urban design and planning that the official plan amendment and zoning was in a position that could be recommended for approval.
Thank
and
you.
then to add to that, the legal report that was brought forward for the position on the OLT, the change there was to ensure that what would have been secured through a Section 37 agreement is now subject to holding symbol provisions that would be further secured through site plan. Happy to answer more questions if you need more details. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No, I thank you for those details. I'm sure in wrap up, Councillor Leeper will address some others, but I do want to acknowledge this neighborhood has its fair share of density and infill. I think Councillor Leeper has made strong points during our official plan discussions about this particular neighborhood. I'm very cognizant of the need for more housing. This is a good neighborhood with a number of amenities. Proximity to transit is definitely there. But I also want to acknowledge that there are concerns. And so it's that balance that we have to have, but I'm open to staff recommendation and willing to listen to colleagues on this one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have two other speakers, Councillor Eglai.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is probably a question for the mover, though perhaps planning staff can weigh in as well. We're being asked to do something this morning we don't often do in terms of a planning application. So Councillor Leeper, you had indicated that a request went to the proponent asking for an alternative design. Did that request come from you or for planning? And was the response to that request a flat denial and we're off to the board, or was there any attempt on the behalf of the proponent to address the concerns?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Eglai. The direction, Minto was at the planning committee meeting at which we deferred the application pending hearing a modified proposal. So they were well aware, of course, of what planning committee's directions were. Within, and I'm sorry, I don't want to get too granular with the time frame, but I believe it was something like a week and a half later, I became aware that Minto was intending, rather than rework the proposal, simply to go to the Ontario Land Tribunal with a request to decide the matter on the basis of the non-decision. So it was a very quick timeline. Moving from the planning committee's clear instructions to Minto's decision to take it to the OLT.
Yeah, and if I understand it, there was nothing in between. Minto didn't come back and ask for further clarification or direction, or say, what if we tried this? What if we tried that? They just simply went straight to the tribunal.
No, I think they heard clearly that committee was uncomfortable with this notion of a density transfer from one part of the lot to the other, and considered that the 9-story limit that we anticipate in the traditional Main Street vision for Wellington Street West is still appropriate. And I guess they just saw too much daylight between what planning committee expressed as a concern and their own economic imperatives to rework the proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Meehan, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess my question is, where does the application stand now with LPAT? Has it heard it? Has it ruled?
Mr. Mayor, there's been an introductory or initial case management conference that's solely procedural. There will be another case management conference scheduled for September 28th, which will allow us a chance to make further plans based on what council instructs today.
So I guess what we're being asked to do today could be, I don't know. I don't know if legal staff at the city have any idea what LPAT would rule here. should we be waiting a bit to see, or do we care at this point, or do we just want to go ahead with this motion today?
Mr. Mayor, before the tribunal can make a ruling, we would require instructions from City Council as to what position city staff should take in that appeal.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor. So Councillor Leeper's motion carried, and the report as amended carried. Next is item 13.4, Orleans Corridor Secondary Plan, Plan Secondaire de Clouval d'Orléans. We have a motion by Councillor Luloff, seconded by Councillor Gower, and then we have a direction to staff from Councillor Luloff. So Councillor Luloff, if you'd like to introduce both of those, please. Councillor Luloff, you're on mute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This is quite a lengthy motion, full of technical amendments. This stems from direction at Planning Committee to work through some of the issues that were raised and clarifications that were required. It's a bit in the weeds. Essentially, Planning Committee on September 8th, city planning staff were directed to work with the Myers Group to resolve and clarify concerns relating to this report. Since September 8th Planning Committee meeting, staff have identified amendments which are attached in this annex, which is before you. Therefore, be it resolved that with respect to the report, City Council approve the amendments to documents 1 and 4 of the Orleans Corridor Secondary Plan Study as set out in Annex 1 attached to the motion. This has been previously distributed. This is supported by staff, and I see no reason to reject these technical amendments. Second, I do have a direction to staff on the Orleans corridor study. So given that the official plan and the Orleans secondary plan is targeted growth and intensification in major transit station areas in anticipation that dense urban communities will grow around these new O-train stations, that in the context of stage 3 LRT, which certainly is ahead of us, staff be directed to consider reviewing and revisiting the costing and funding opportunities for the 2 additional LRT stations at Orleans Centrum and 10th Line that were ultimately left off the final plans for stage 2 LRT. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have an amendment from Councillor Luloff, seconded by Councillor Gower. Carried.
Carried.
And then direction to staff, agreed. On the main report as amended, Orleans Corridor Secondary Plan. Carried. Adopted.
Carried.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Motion to adopt reports. Motion portant adoption de rapport. Councillor Curry, seconded by Councillor Eglai.
That the Planning Committee report entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment 100 Stacy Drive, Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee Report 33, Audit Committee Report 16, Planning Committee Report 67, and the report from the City Clerk entitled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for Items Subject to the Planning Act, Explanation Requirements at the City Council meeting of August 31st, 2022 be received and adopted as amended.
The motion carried. Adopté.
Carried.
Motions of which notice have been previously given. Motion dont avis a été donné entièrement. Councillor Leeper, please, seconded by Councillor McKenney.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And thank you very much to Councillor McKenney for seconding this. This is with respect to Right to Food Day and a proclamation by the city for October 5th. Whereas the United Nations Sustainability Goal number 2 calls on all member nations to end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition for all people. Whereas the results of Parkdale Food Center's Knowing Our Neighbors report found that 92% of respondents had worried that food would run out before getting money to buy more, and 75% had eaten less than they felt they should in the past year. Whereas in the past year, 62% of households surveyed indicated it was not possible to feed children a well-balanced meal due to financial constraints. In 42% of households, surveyed children were often or sometimes not eating enough due to financial constraints. Whereas the current year's responses indicate an increase in food insecurity amongst low-income households when compared with previous year's survey responses, therefore be it resolved that City Council designate Wednesday, October 5th, 2022, Right to Food Day in recognition of the work that Parkdale Food Centers and other partners have done to increase food security for low-income residents across Ottawa. Mayor, my understanding is that there will be a number of events planned around that particular date.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Councillor. On Councillor's motion, carried. Adopt A. Next is a motion by Councillor Brockington, seconded by Councillor Tierney. Councillor Brockington, please.
Thanks, Mayor. This is regarding no parking request on the north side of Trent Street, which was introduced at our last meeting. It's fairly straightforward. Due to community requests, I moved forward with a notification to all households earlier this year. Support has been unanimous, and in order to get this through, it was not a formal petition. This is the issue. It was not a formal City of Ottawa petition. I've come to council for this authority. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. On the motion, carried. Councillor Fleury has a motion sent by Councillor Tierney. I think everyone's seen it, so probably not necessary to go through the whole thing. On the motion, carried.
Sure.
That's the longest motion I've seen in a while. Next, Councillor Menard, seconded by Councillor King. Councillor Menard, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor. This is for next meeting. Whereas beginning in 2023, 2024, the city will undertake an integrated road restructuring project in the Old Ottawa South neighborhood of Ward 17. I think I read this out last meeting, actually, Mayor, so maybe we'll just go to the be it resolved, save some time. Therefore, be it resolved that council approve that in respect of the reconstruction of Grove Avenue and Grosvenor Avenue, private approaches and encroachments being reinstated as they were immediately prior to the reconstruction of this street, and be it further resolved that the fees for any encroachment, including the agreement in respect of 93 Grosvenor, be waived subject to the owner agreeing to remove the encroachment should redevelopment take place on site. And thanks to staff for helping to draft this and their work on this project.
Right, on the motion, adopt A, carried.
Carried.
Motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedure. Councillor Kitts has one, seconded by Councillor Gower, on disaster relief funding from the province. On suspension, carried. Councillor Kitts, please. Important issue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll read it into the record and then speak to it. Whereas on May 21st, 2022, an unexpected and powerful derecho and impactful thunderstorms hit the Ottawa region at approximately 3:50 p.m. And whereas sustained high winds, extraordinary wind gusts of up to 190 kilometers an hour, and heavy rains caused massive tree displacement, destruction of hydro infrastructure, resulting in extensive power outages, widespread and costly damage to properties, displacement of residents, and the forced extended closures of businesses and services. And whereas the Provincial Disaster Recovery Assistance for Ontarians, DREO program, allows homeowners, residential tenants, small owner-operated businesses, not-for-profit organizations, small owner-operated farms to submit claims for financial help. And whereas this program permits residents to claim cleanup expenses, costs to repair or replace essential property, and basic emergency expenses like evacuation travel costs. And whereas Council approved a motion on June 8th, 2022, requesting a letter be sent to the province, requesting consideration of designated Ottawa an impacted area, and no response has been received. And whereas the province of Ontario is required to activate the Disaster Recovery Assistance for Ontarians program for this specific area affected by a natural disaster to enable aid to flow to affected victims, therefore be it resolved that Mayor Watson write to Premier Ford and the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for a second time to formally request that the City of Ottawa be designated as an area specifically affected by a natural disaster. So this feels a little bit like deja vu since I brought a very similar motion forward in June, but I have been incredibly frustrated and disappointed with the lack of response from the province and why they have not activated this program for residents of our city. I realize that for many, the storm came and went within a few days or weeks, but for residents in my rural area of Navan, Sarsfield, Carlsbad Springs, and many other parts of the city, the cleanup and the rebuilding continues. And just today on my way to City Hall, I passed many farms that still don't have rooms or roofs on them, and winter's coming. So in communication with my own MPP, Stéphane Sarrazin, I've been told that the provincial government is insisting that insurance should be covering property damage, but residents have learned the hard way that there are many costs outside of what insurance covers that they are dealing with. And I fail to understand why the program has been activated for Uxbridge following the May storm, but not Ottawa. When I'm looking at photos of Uxbridge, it looks very similar to what I'm seeing in my own community. And why isn't Uxbridge being told that insurance should be covering their costs? So another excuse I've heard is that we have not qualified because of the category of the storm. 190-kilometer-hour winds in line with an F3 tornado. My area was recently visited by Team Rubicon. It's an international organization deployed to areas that are recovering from a natural disaster. So I once again am putting the question to the province. If you have a program set up to aid Ontarians who are recovering from a natural disaster, and if what happened here objectively was a natural disaster, why are impacted residents of our city being shut out from receiving help? Families like the McWilliams, who 4 properties in one family, their generational farms destroyed. This is a family who has given back to the community on countless occasions. Why aren't we giving them a hand up? And city staff, particularly Public Works and our roads teams, have been incredible. They spent the entire summer cleaning debris from our streets. But we need the province to step up. We need them to help the residents of our city. So I'm requesting council's support to send a strong message to the province today. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. That was very well put. Councillor Egli, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm obviously in favor of this. I just wanted to say a few words of support. My area in Ward 9, Pine Glen, Maryville Gardens, Country Place, Craig Henry, were all hit very hard by the dress show. As for the comparison to what kind of a storm it was, my ward was also hit very hard by the tornado, and I can tell you, it was as bad or worse than what I saw after the tornado. There were streets that you could not go down. There were people still struggling. The city just finished doing another sweep through the community to pick up debris. It's happened in May. We're still picking up debris from people's front yards. At one street where people couldn't even park on their driveways, that were so full of debris. Up until just a week or so ago, they were parking on the street if they could, on their front lawns. As for the insurance is great for what it does, but it absolutely does not do everything. I've heard of instances where they'll cut the tree down, but they won't move it out of the yard, forcing that cost, or even trying to find an arborist on individuals to do it. So this, and I'm going to use the word that my colleague used, this disaster relief is not over. This disaster, coming back from it is not over. There are many people whose roofs are still not fixed, whose siding is still not fixed. I don't know, I haven't seen the pictures from Uxbridge. I haven't been to Uxbridge. I don't think there should be a contest between us and Uxbridge at all. But I can't imagine that what happened in our city in that 90 seconds cannot be classified as a natural disaster. And the relief that should flow from that designation should be coming to the citizens of Ottawa as well. I'm not saying take anything away from anybody else in the province, but the same benefits, the same assistance, the same resources should be made to the residents of Ottawa who've been hit extremely hard twice now in less than 4 years. I continue to work with residents on a regular basis who are struggling to remove debris, get repairs done, to deal with their insurance companies. So it's not over, Premier Ford, and we really do need this help. We asked once, we didn't get an answer. I'm hoping this letter will prod you and the cabinet to provide us with an answer this time, and the answer is yes, we will help out the residents of Ottawa.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Deans, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, I absolutely concur with Councillor Kitts and Councillor Aglai that this was disastrous in many areas of our city, including the area that I represent. And it was a bit of a double whammy because the tornadoes took a very similar course to the derecho, and a lot of the same people got hit not once but twice in the last 4 years. And it has been a real struggle. I think it would be important to understand what the determination is so that it's fair for everyone. But I guess the one thing I'm left thinking is we sent a letter to the province and they didn't respond. So we're going to send another letter. And I'm wondering if we just, Mr. Mayor, couldn't do a little better than that. Could we request that you meet with the Premier or invite the Premier to come to Ottawa and tour some of these areas and see firsthand for himself the kind of destruction that has occurred here that his government apparently doesn't think has met the bar or isn't even worthy of a response to a letter. So I guess my feeling is, and I'm looking to Councillor Kitts, if you wouldn't perhaps think of strengthening the resolution to ask the mayor to invite the Premier to visit the affected communities in Ottawa that were hardest hit by this derecho so he can see firsthand what we're experiencing here. And if he won't come, then if at least he would meet with some of the councillors in the affected areas and the mayor to discuss this. I think we have to get in his face a little bit more because just a second letter, I'm not sure we're going to get a better outcome than we got the first time.
I'd be happy to accept that as a friendly amendment. I know that the Premier did visit Ottawa in the days after the storm, but did not visit the impacted area. So,
okay, Councillor Law, please.
I don't want to belabor the point on this. I support this 100%. And, hearing from my colleagues on this as well, I spend quite a bit of time, in fact, in Councillor Deans's ward, and I've seen that there are still branches and trees. Some of them are lying on top of roofs still. In Councillor Deans's ward. This is spread across our city. In fact, I received a telephone call yesterday from people have lives outside of dealing with this emergency. A woman who's dealing with breast cancer and was in hospital when the derecho came by, and she asked me if the city was offering any support because when she was released from the hospital, came back to find that her tree was lying on a roof. So not only is she trying to deal with a life-threatening disease, but also trying to struggle with insurance to try and get this this cleaned up, and has obviously missed the window for special pickup. We're working with staff on that, and I'm sure that we'll be able to help her out. But when you're trying to deal with all of these different things in your life on top of all of this, this provincial support is needed. It is nothing against Uxbridge whatsoever, but I spent the time out in Councillor Kitts' ward, spent quite a bit of time in the south end in Councillor Deans's ward, and the devastation is across the city. We need this, so let's present a unified front here and get this done. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gower on the item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm trying to find the recent memo. What is the current and projected cost of Ottawa's cleanup at this point? I know staff had sent a memo to council.
It's about 30 million hydro, 20 million city, 50 million total.
50 million total. Okay.
50.
And I'm just, Councillor Kitts brought up Uxbridge, that they qualify for disaster relief assistance. Why would Uxbridge qualify and Ottawa not? What's the formula the province uses?
I don't know if Kim has that. It's a percentage of the operating budget. I think 3%. If it goes over that, you're eligible.
Mr. Mayor, I can answer that question. It's Wendy Stephenson here. It is 3% of own source revenues, which is basically property taxation, and they hit the threshold.
Okay, and so that's what they use as well for resident disaster assistance, not just for paying back municipalities?
Yes, that's correct. They apply that to both.
So what a bizarre formula the province uses to determine who is eligible for disaster assistance. If you're a farmer or a resident who lives in a small municipality with a very small tax base, you get disaster assistance from the province. If you're a farmer or a resident living in a larger amalgamated municipality like Ottawa, you do not, just because of the size of the tax base. It has no logical connection or link. It's a bizarre formula to determine that. So thank you, Councillor Kitts, for raising this again. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for continuing to push the province to help residents in our community who are still struggling to recover from the storm. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Fleury, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Je vais certainement appuyer la motion.
I will definitely support that motion. And of course, she's raising exactly the same issues as the colleagues. The residents that were affected did their best to settle their investment issues, but really it is bigger than they are. And in the past, we set up programs to support communities, but we see that there are some shortfalls. So I wonder, Mr. Mayor or Councillor Kitts, if the letter should not be amended to insist on the importance of having people from the ministry come here to better understand the situation in Ottawa, because there seemed to be a lack of understanding about the scope of the disaster. I wonder if that would be acceptable to my colleague. Absolutely. Councillor Dean said the same thing, really. So we will put it on the screen again, and we will include that kind of language. There we are. Thank you.
Do you wish to wrap up?
I think I've said what I need to say, and you'll see now on the screen the language has been added, so I can reread. So therefore be it resolved that Mayor Watson write to Premier Ford and the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for a second time to formally request that the City of Ottawa be designated as an area specifically affected by a natural disaster. Be it further resolved that the Premier and Minister be invited to visit Ottawa to see firsthand the impacts in affected areas. I very much appreciate all of the support from my colleagues, especially those who are also dealing with the damage in their own wards. And I just want to be clear, I was not meaning to be disparaging to the residents of Uxbridge, but as Councillor Gower pointed out, I really just don't understand how this criteria is being employed and why residents of Ottawa are being left out when the damage was so significant here. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Kitts, for bringing the motion forward. Thank you, Councillor Gower, for seconding the motion. Those of you who, Councillor Kitts referenced briefly Wyatt McWilliams. Those of you who haven't had the pleasure and honor of meeting Wyatt will recognize he's a true community builder. He's a recipient of the Key to the City. He organized Hay West when our farm friends out west were having a real problem with drought to ship hay from Ottawa and Eastern Ontario to Alberta and Manitoba and Saskatchewan. And he did the 50-horse hitch, which set a Guinness record in Navan during the Navan Fair's 50th anniversary, if I'm not mistaken. So he's a giver. He's, I think in 12 years, he's only called me once, and it was on this issue, because he, and not just he, but his neighbors, are having a really difficult time. It's always, it's tough enough being a farmer in this day and age without having this added burden. And I know as a former Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, where this program falls under, it's entirely up to the discretion of the minister to designate an area. And I agree, we don't want to get into a battle with Uxbridge. Good for Uxbridge for meeting the criteria. But we'll continue to have discussions with the minister's office and the premier's office. And I think this will remind those folks at Queen's Park that, I think we deserve some consideration given the horrific situation that so many people had to deal with. And as a number of you talked about, I think Councillor Deans as well mentioned that the tornado in some instances followed the same pattern as the massive storm, which was worse than the ice storm. It was 400 poles lost this storm versus, I think, 30 or 35 poles during the ice storm. So I think it's just a matter of fairness in terms of treating our residents fairly, that they should be entitled to some assistance above and beyond what insurance provides. And we all know how difficult it is to deal with an insurance company who are always very quick to cash your check for your program, your package, but not as quick to come to the aid of those people who need their help very, very quickly because of the health impacts of not having a roof and the impacts on the animals and the hay and not having a barn roof. Alors, c'est important pour nous autres de...
So it's important for us to support this motion. Thank you so much, Councillor Kitts, for your initiatives. Good luck with your discussion with the MPs. Mr. Sarrazin, I believe.
Discussions
and I think, and I hope,
I've had and will continue to have, we'll see a resolution sooner than later to help those individuals who've been hard hit now, in some instances, 2 or 3 times, because we've had the tornadoes, we have the floods, and now we have this massive storm that was quite devastating. So on the motion, carried, adopted.
Carried.
Carried.
The next motion requires suspension of the rules. Is Councillor Leeper, seconded by Councillor Gower, with respect to zoning matter. 1040 Somerset on suspension, carried. Councillor Leeper, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Claridge continues to try to find a way to make their project at 1040 Somerset work. This particular project has been a very long time in the site plan process, and I'm bringing a motion today with respect to removing the holding zone now that it's received site plan approval. So whereas the development has been proposed for 1040 Somerset that has experienced some challenges in moving to construction as a result of changing economics, and whereas the zoning includes a holding provision requiring site plan approval to be granted before the H can be lifted. And whereas site plan approval was granted on September 15th, which did not allow for the bylaw to be listed on today's agenda. And whereas the passing of the bylaw today could help facilitate this project advancing as a rental project, including over 50 units of affordable housing supported by CMHC. Therefore, be it resolved that the rules of procedure be waived to allow a bylaw of the City of Ottawa to amend bylaw 2008-250 to remove the holding symbol from the lands known municipally as 1040 Somerset Street West to be placed on the agenda.
Okay, I don't see any other speakers on the motion. Carried. Adopted.
Carried.
Carried. Item 19, notice is a motion for consideration of subsequent meeting avec des motions par exemple réunion subséquente. Councillor Kitts, seconded by Councillor Gower, please.
Thank you. I'll just read it in. So whereas on August 23rd, 2017, bylaw number 2017-275 entitled A Bylaw of the City of Ottawa to amend bylaw number 2008-250 at the City of Ottawa to change the zoning of part of the lands known municipally as 4200 Innes Road was passed by council. And whereas the said bylaw was appealed, and whereas no Ontario Land Tribunal hearing has yet taken place, and whereas the applicant is able to and wishes to proceed with development under the previous zoning, and whereas no Planning Act process is required to repeal a bylaw under appeal, therefore be it resolved that bylaw number 2017-275 entitled A Bylaw of the City of Ottawa to amend bylaw number 2008-250 at the City of Ottawa to change the zoning of part of the lands known municipally as 4200 Innes Road be repealed.
Okay, we'll deal with that at the next meeting. The next notice of motion is Councillor Luloff, seconded by Councillor Tierney, please.
Thank you very much. So where's Spring Ridge Drive is a residential collector street in the Cardinal Creek community with a current posted speed limit of 50. And whereas Spring Ridge Drive is a high traffic area in proximity to well-used park and several well-used pathways, many residents have raised safety concerns regarding the current speed limit. And whereas while Spring Ridge Drive is well used by local residents for cycling and walking through the community, they often feel unsafe given the high speeds which cars and buses travel along in the street. Whereas a 40-kilometer-an-hour limit for Spring Ridge Drive combined with strategic temporary traffic calming measures, which are already in place on this street, will help address these concerns. There's quite a few other whereases. I think council gets where I'm going with this.
Okay.
Therefore, be it resolved that we approve the implementation of a 40-kilometer-an-hour speed limit on Spring Ridge Drive.
Thank you. Our next item to be dealt with at a subsequent meeting is by Councillor Brockington, seconded by Councillor Kavanaugh on coyotes.
Thank you, Mayor. I am moving a notice of motion today. Thank you to my colleague, Councillor Kavanaugh, for seconding. Whereas the urban and suburban green spaces that make Ottawa such a desirable place to live are also home to an array of wildlife such as coyotes. Whereas coexistence with coyotes is necessary as these predators help to maintain the natural balance in landscapes where traditional predators no longer exist and help control populations of animals that might otherwise become problematic. And whereas urban coyotes can pose a serious danger to household pets as well as humans if interactions are not properly managed. Whereas in 2021, 476 coyote sightings were reported to the City of Ottawa. Whereas residents in Riverward have observed an increase in the number of coyote-human interactions this year, and the public is demanding the city take greater action on coyotes. Whereas in accordance with the Ottawa Wildlife Strategy approved by City Council on July 17, 2017, the responsibilities for the prevention and resolution of human-wildlife conflicts lie primarily in 3 areas: on city property, in the immediate protection of public health and safety, and in the provision of public information on human-wildlife interactions. And whereas the City of Ottawa currently provides guidance to homeowners regarding management of coyotes in response to individual problem coyote sightings that are reported to 311, although there seems to be currently no clear strategy to proactively manage coyotes in the city. Whereas there are multiple agencies that are responsible for land in Ottawa, including but not limited to the city, the National Capital Commission, and other federal and provincial departments and agencies. Therefore, be it resolved that the Emergency and Protective Services Department and the Planning, Real Estate, and Economic Development Department, Natural Systems and Rural Affairs, in consultation with relevant internal wildlife experts, external experts, and other municipalities, undertake a review of options to better manage human-coyote interactions within the City of Ottawa. And finally, therefore, be it resolved that staff report back to the Community and Protective Services Committee in 2023 with options, recommendations, and resourcing implications for implementing a proactive coyote management strategy for the City of Ottawa. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Next notice motion is by Councillor Menard, and I'll second it in lieu of Councillor Moffat not being here, and he will second it when it comes back to Council. Councillor Menard, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Whereas the City of Ottawa is committed to evaluating and implementing waste management practices to extend the life of the trail waste facility landfill, reducing the amount of waste generated by residents in the city, maximize reuse and recycling of waste, and contain costs. And whereas the development of the city's new 30-year solid waste master plan, the waste plan, is currently taking place and has affirmed the above noted practices as the official goals of the waste plan. And whereas the vision of a zero waste Ottawa achieved through progressive, collective, and innovative action for the waste plan was approved by Council on July 7th, 2021. And zero waste was defined using the Zero Waste International Alliance definition as a goal and community effort that is both pragmatic and visionary to guide people to emulate sustainable natural cycles where all discarded materials are resources that can be used. And whereas there are several Canadian municipalities with a zero waste vision, including Metro Vancouver, Guelph, Montreal, and Toronto, and those municipalities and many others are members of the National Zero Waste Council in order to collaborate, share resources, and learn from each other in moving towards a zero waste future. And whereas becoming a member of the National Zero Waste Council has no financial implications, and any future funding that may be required would be subject to the city's budget travel approval process. Therefore, be it resolved that Council 1 directs staff to submit an application for membership to the National Zero Waste Council, identifying the Director of Solid Waste Services or their designate as the lead staff member supporting, working with, and participating in the National Zero Waste Council. And 2, approve that staff draft a statement of intent based on the council approved vision, guiding principles and goals of the waste plan, and submit it to the National Zero Waste Council on behalf of Ottawa City Council, outlining the City of Ottawa's commitment to waste prevention and reduction, including any relevant plans, programs, and policies. And just thanks to solid waste staff for drafting the motion and working collaboratively on this.
Okay, thank you. Motion to introduce bylaws. Motion portant présentation de règlement. Councillor Curry, please, seconded by Councillor Eglai. And this bylaw includes the additional bylaw read 1040 Somerset Street West, added by the Leeper-Gower motion.
That the bylaws listed on the agenda under motion to introduce bylaws, 3 readings be read and passed, and that the following bylaw be read and passed in accordance with the motion approved at this meeting. A bylaw of the City of Ottawa to amend bylaw number 2008-250 to remove the holding symbol from the lands known municipally as 1040 Somerset Street West.
On the motion, adopté, carried.
Carried.
Confirmation bylaw, Councillor Curry, seconded by Councillor Eglai.
That the following bylaw be read and passed to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting of September 21st, 2022.
Carried. We have one written inquiry. Councillor Tierney.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, with COVID, I think we're discovering lots of new challenges, not just supply chain issues, but procurement is becoming a bit of a challenge. So this is an inquiry, and we're seeing it firsthand. I've experienced it. Other colleagues have experienced it. It's no fault of our amazing staff within the Parks and Recreation Department, nor the fault of procurement. But when we see companies that are installing play structures go bankrupt, and we've ripped out their community park, it's very challenging to explain to our constituents, why did the city steal our park that children use? So I think we have to look to the future of a more nimble process and procurement while remaining transparent in our standing offer list. So I'll just be very brief. As a repercussion of COVID, businesses are experiencing bankruptcies, resulting in the current procurement practices not functioning effectively. We're witnessing partial building of parks construction coming to a halt. Consequently, park staff have to be removed, and prolonged tendering process repeats itself. It's also been a competitive market. We have tendering contracts with 0 bids being returned. This failure is not restricted to parks, but larger projects within our city. We must look expeditiously for a new transparent process to pick up the drop balls and move forward, maintaining costs at today's versus tomorrow's dollars. Since inception of the pandemic, how many projects have been completed or are on hold? How many companies have either gone bankrupt or failed to complete their contractual obligations to the city? Are we looking at other major cities for possible solutions to procurement? And how can Ottawa become more nimble in our procurement practices to avoid these pitfalls and maneuver through the pandemic? And how, as council, can we support this process? Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. Adjournment, Councillor Curry, please.
That the proceedings of the City Council meeting of September 21st, 2022 be adjourned.
Carried, adopté. The media availability will begin in 15 minutes at 11:45. On va commencer la conférence de presse à midi moins 15. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.